It was devised by Christian creationist geologists like William Smith. William Smith was a creationist. He devised the geologic column in the early 1800s when Darwin was a baby. The geologic column was in wide use by 1830, almost 30 years before Darwin even wrote Origin of the Species. Now, most places do not have a complete geologic column. Illinois does not. And in some places there's been erosion. Some places there never was any rock in the first place. But as in this rock cut, sometimes the layers are folded. And sometimes they're even heaved up on younger strata. But none of these facts invalidates using the geologic column for determining the relative age of fossils. And anyone who has taken an introductory college course in geology knows this. Do evolutionists construct the geologic column? No, it's field geologists, often those in the petroleum industry, and they often know little of evolution and could care less. Here is a geologic map of Kansas constructed by oil geologists. Well, the geologic column has contributed to what we know about horse evolution, and here is what Hovind has to say. He says, they have taken critters from all over the world, South America, Europe, and Asia, and put them together in a predetermined area. They have already decided to start off with the smallest to largest animals. That is not the way they are found. So what Hovind is suggesting here is that scientists are being purposely deceitful. And if that's true, why don't you come up with a list of specific scientists and exactly what fossils you think are out of order? Your English teachers back at EP High would have a heyday correcting your vague allegations. He continues, they find them in different layers, but they have it in the textbooks that the Eohippus slowly changes into Equus, the modern horse. That's baloney. The only baloney here is what Hovind has written, so much that you might consider a hot link to the Oscar Mayer website. Hovind clearly doesn't understand that horses don't change into other horses, but that species branch. And here is a slide showing most of the fossil forms associated with horse evolution. Hovind again says, modern horses are found in layers lower than the Eohippus. Eohippus, Equus. If there is a particular Eocene Equus fossil, I challenge Hovind to submit his findings to a reputable scientific journal. And finally, he says, the Eohippus is nothing more than the hyrax running around South America today. Oh, really? The hyrax is not a horse at all. It's not even in the same order. And it doesn't live in South America. It lives in Asia Minor, in Ethiopia, and was known in the Bible as a coney. Does this look like a horse to you? Sometimes ancestral traits show up in modern forms, as one sees in this three-toed horse. Well, Hovind has a lot to say about feathers, too. Hovind does not know the difference between the chemical that gives carrots their color and the chemical that makes feathers and scales. In this excerpt from his website, he calls keratin carotene. A real scientist would know the difference between the two of these, and yet he wants you to believe that he knows something about feathers. Well, what about feathers? Hovind claims that there are no intermediate forms between feathers and scales, that feathers are very complex, that they came from different genes, and that no missing links have ever been found. Feathers look complex, but they're actually very simple serial repeats. And an interesting experiment lately is that by using a mutant form of an enzyme, scientists were actually able to induce the growth of feathers on chicken feet where scales normally would be found. There is not that much difference between scales and feathers. There is also a perfect intermediate, Longisquama, a fossil form bearing the intermediates between scales and feathers, and this fossil form has been around for 30 years. But Hovind doesn't really want scales and feathers to be different because he doesn't want to see any transitions between birds, dinosaurs, and reptiles. He wants immutable kinds. And here's what he has to say. First of all, regarding the lung, reptiles have a sac-type lung, and birds have a tubular-type lung. This is correct, and this betrays their ancestry. Birds have a lung core and air sacs that get into even bones. The bones get attacked by these air sacs and canals and holes are left. What other animals possess such features? Sauropod dinosaurs, theropod dinosaurs, and Archaeopteryx. Very good example of a transitional form. What about the heart? He says reptiles have a 3-chambered heart and birds have a 4-chambered heart. Well, wrong again. A crocodilian, alligators and crocodiles have 4-chambered hearts. They are very different from that of a squamate, lizard and snake, and turtle. This is exactly what one would expect if birds and crocodiles descended from a common ancestor. This is exactly what one would expect if birds and crocodiles descended from a common ancestor. Well, as you can see, all of these premises rely on feeding you an inaccurate picture of the science that really exists. So, why is the science so bad? Despite Hovind's claim of being a foremost authority, he has almost no science background at all. He claims to have a PhD from a place called Patriot University. Well, this is the course listing from Patriot University, and interestingly, Patriot University does not offer a PhD. It does offer a doctorate of ministry in Christian education, where one would be taking Old Testament, New Testament, Christian education, and some electives. Patriot University offers almost no science courses at all. The Bible and science, creation and the collapse of evolution, medical science and the Bible, the biblical basis of modern science, and a health, nutrition, and first aid course. But that's about it. And in order to matriculate at Patriot University, one sends in love offerings. I can imagine what kind of grades you get if you send in love offerings every month, and I sure wish I'd been able to pay my tuition that way. Patriot University is located in a house in Alamosa, Colorado. It used to be located in a house in Colorado Springs, and there is no outward evidence that this house is Patriot University. A website run by Christians who evaluate Christian distance learning centers calls PU a diploma mill. So am I being elitist and snooty here? Well, no more than the rest of you. All of you have turned to professionals for medical or mechanical advice, and you assume a level of professional expertise. If you have a broken leg, do you want to get a doctor who graduated from U of I or one who learned medicine on his own? If you have a union card, did you get that by an apprenticeship or by workbooks and home study? Science is no different, and the practitioners of science also need to have a certain level of expertise, and this is most easily achieved by studying science at a university. Well, Hovind will now whine ad hominem or something like that. I'm not attacking him for his religious beliefs. It's the lousy science I'm after.
Karen Bartelt here is using an ad hominem argument, attacking me personally. Whether I have a degree or not is not the issue. Where my degree is from is not the issue. What am I saying is the issue. The university she teaches at is a small college in Eureka, Illinois. I grew up not very far from that area. I'm very familiar with that region. And when President Reagan was there, it was a very, very small college, and yet their claim to fame is that it's the college of President Reagan. The size of the college doesn't matter. Darwin's degree was in theology, and yet I'm sure Karen Bartelt and many others think of him as being a great scientist. So to attack the college is simply not a valid argument. By the way, my degree is a PhD, Doctor of